G'day, I'm Steve Irwin and welcome to my home here at Australia Zoo. Let's get 'em!
Have you ever heard of the Crocodile Hunter? A man whose passion for life was so contagious that it inspired millions around the world? That's the kind of impact Steve Irwin had on our planet. Steve fearlessly embraced the wild, captivating audiences with his enthusiasm for every creature he came across. From deadly snakes to cuddly koalas, this adventurer showed us that even the most intimidating animals deserve our respect and protection. But Steve's life was more than just daring stunts and close calls. He dedicated himself to conservation efforts, using his fame to highlight the importance of preserving our world's most fascinating animals and their natural habitats. Sadly, Steve's journey was cut short in a tragic accident that shook people everywhere. On a fateful day in September 2006, Steve, then 44 years old, was gearing up for another exciting day of filming near the shores of Port Douglas, Australia. This time he was working on a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest for the Discovery Channel, a project that would take him deep into the sea which he loved so dearly. There was something very unsettling about that day. His friend John Stainton was gripped by a gut feeling that something disastrous was looming on the horizon. Despite Stanton's concerns, the show had to go on. After all, the financial commitments and pressures of the project left little room for anything else. Stanton made the fateful decision to proceed, a choice that would haunt him forever. Little did he know that his uneasy feeling would prove to be tragic. As the cameras captured Steve's enthusiasm and deep love for nature, everything was perfect for a moment. Yet, in the blink of an eye, the unthinkable happened. A freak accident that would rob the world of one of its most passionate champions of wildlife. In that fateful moment, Steve's life was cut short, but his legacy had only just begun. For you see, Steve Irwin's story is not one of tragedy, but rather proof of the incredible impact one person's passion can have on the world. As the sun peaked over the horizon near Port Douglas, the trio boarded Steve's 75-foot research boat, the Croc 1, and set sail towards the Bat Reef in the Great Barrier Reef. This underwater paradise is home to a diverse array of marine life, including sea turtles, dolphins, and even whales. Their mission for the day? To capture stunning footage of a shark for Steve's documentary, Ocean's Deadliest. They suited up and plunged into the depths, ready to film these powerful predators up close. However, the waters were murky, obscuring their vision and making it nearly impossible to locate a suitable shark to film. Their search proved fruitless, and with heavy hearts, Steve and the team prepared to call off the shoot and head back to the surface. But just as they were about to abandon their quest, a flash of movement caught Steve's eye. A beautiful stingray gliding gracefully through the waters. At that moment, his face lit up with the infectious enthusiasm that had made him a favourite to millions worldwide. Stingrays, with their massive wingspans and whip-like tails, are generally gentle creatures, content to mind their own business unless provoked. But for the experienced Steve, this was an opportunity too good to pass up. Driven by a desire to capture the perfect shot for his daughter Bindi's upcoming wildlife show, Bindi the Jungle Girl, Steve moved in closer, his camera set and ready to get the best shot of the stingray. Steve was filled with excitement as he signaled to his cameraman Justin to start filming the beautiful stingray. It was rare to get such a close-up view, as stingrays usually swim away or bury themselves when people get near, but Steve saw this as a great opportunity. As Justin swam closer, neither of them realized the shocking thing that was about to happen. Steve hovered just a few feet above the stingray, looking for the best angle to capture its graceful movements on camera. The moment was peaceful and calm, as if the world was holding its breath. But then, without any warning, the stingray suddenly lashed out, its long whip-like tail thrust upwards incredibly fast, slicing through the water and stabbing right into Steve's chest with its razor-sharp barb. For a few seconds, time seemed to freeze as Steve felt a numbing sensation, his mind struggling to understand what had just occurred. Even in this chaos, Steve's dedication shone through. With remarkable composure, he calmly told Justin to keep filming, determined to capture something from the terrible encounter. Justin, however, immediately grasped how serious the situation was. As Steve's blood began turning the water around them red, Justin knew they were in grave danger. Trailing blood in these waters could attract the ocean's deadliest predators. Every second felt like an eternity as the two fought against the water's resistance and strong currents, their lives hanging by a thread. When they finally broke through the surface, gasping for air, the true extent of Steve's injury became horrifyingly clear. A gaping 2-inch hole had been ripped into his chest, and his blood was pouring out with each breath. It was a scary moment when Steve and Justin resurfaced. Steve was in terrible pain, bleeding heavily from a deep wound in his chest. The stingray's powerful tail had stabbed right into his chest, cutting dangerously close to his heart. Despite the agony, Steve remained calm. He told Justin that his lungs were punctured, but the reality was even worse. The stingray's barb had sliced into the area around his heart itself, causing massive blood loss that could kill him within minutes. Justin screamed for help from the crew on their boat. They raced to get Steve into a small inflatable speedboat to rush him back to land as fast as possible. Throughout the nightmare ordeal, Steve showed incredible strength. Even as he lost consciousness from blood loss, he fought with every ounce of his being to stay alive as Justin and the crew frantically tried to stop the bleeding. But as the precious minutes ticked by, a grim realization set in. Steve seemed to understand that he was dying. His eyes closed, his face turned blue, and then he stopped moving altogether. Steve Irwin, the world-renowned wildlife expert, conservationist, and beloved TV star, was gone. Paramedics were called to the shore in a desperate long-shot effort to revive him, but it was too late. They could only pronounce the devastating words that Steve had passed away from his catastrophic injuries. In the tragic days that followed, Steve's wife Terry spoke publicly about the tragic loss of the love of her life. She thanked the outpouring of condolences from Steve's millions of bereaved fans around the world. His public memorial service, she announced, would be held at the Australia Zoo, the place that Steve had loved like no other on Earth. The stingray's barb had pierced his chest, and Steve passed away in the midst of the very wildlife he had dedicated his life to protecting. Justin's camera had recorded the entire tragic sequence, from the sudden attack to the desperate attempts by paramedics to save him. Out of reverence for Steve's fearless spirit and to spare his family the anguish of witnessing his final moments, Justin made the choice to erase the footage. Despite a brief investigation by the authorities, the video never saw the light of day. Yet those who had shared in Steve's passion for wildlife and the outdoors were forever haunted by the memory of his tragic demise. When news of Steve's passing reached his wife Terry and their children, Bindi and Rob, who were on a trip in Tasmania, their world shattered. They hurried back to Australia Zoo, where they were met with an outpouring of love and support from countless fans. Steve had often said that his life would be complete if he could pass on his love for nature to his children. In honouring his wish, Bindi and Rob became dedicated zookeepers and conservationists, ensuring that Steve Irwin's legacy lived on. Justin Lyons, an Australian man, later unveiled the chilling details of the Crocodile Hunter's final moments as a monstrous stingray viciously attacked him. Justin Lyons, who was filming with Irwin for their documentary Ocean's Deadliest, recounted the horrifying incident on an Australian news show. The day had started like any other, but took a nightmarish turn when they attempted to capture a final shot of the stingray swimming away from Irwin. I had the camera rolling, anticipating a breathtaking shot, when the stingray abruptly lunged forward and began attacking with ferocious speed, delivering hundreds of strikes in a matter of seconds, Lyons recalled. The stingray, a colossal 8 feet wide, had mistaken Irwin's silhouette for a predatory tiger shark, unleashing a flurry of blows that would prove fatal. Despite being unaware of the severity of the attack at first, Lyons continued to film, capturing capturing the horrific scene as it unfolded. It was only when he turned the camera back to Irwin that he realized the full extent of the tragedy. "I saw Steve standing in a massive pool of blood," Lyons revealed, painting a haunting picture of the aftermath. Irwin, dealing with the severity of his injuries, knew that his time was running out. He believed the stingray had punctured his lung, Lyons explained. Despite their frantic efforts to get him back to the boat quickly, they knew that the situation was grim. "Even if we had managed to get him to an emergency ward at that moment, we probably wouldn't have been able to save him," Lyons lamented. As they rushed Irwin for medical attention, Lyons tried to comfort him, urging him to think of his children. He calmly looked up at me and said, "I'm dying." And that was the last thing he said, Lyons recalled, offering a devastating glimpse into the final moments of a beloved icon. Lyons highlighted one of Irwin's steadfast rules on the job, that cameras never stopped rolling, even in the event of an injury. Another cameraman filmed the efforts to resuscitate Irwin, adhering to this rule. However, Lyons firmly stated that there is no justification for this footage to ever be released to the public. John Staton, the iconic producer behind The Crocodile Hunter, shared another narrative about Steve Irwin's final days on the I've Got News for You podcast. In a stunning conversation with host Andrew Bucklow, Staton unveiled a series of events surrounding the ill-fated 2007 documentary Ocean's Deadliest that seemed almost too surreal to believe. Staton described a pervasive sense of unease that gripped him during the filming, particularly noting an unsettling speech by Irwin to the crew, which he described as very, very weird. "A couple of days before we started the show, he made a little speech to all the crew that was up there catching crocs for his research trip, which I joined at the end with our crew," Staton recounted. He was sort of thanking them all for being who they were and for helping him. It was like a final speech. The news of Irwin's death echoed around the world, and people mourned the loss of the fearless wildlife advocate and adventurer who had excited audiences for years as the host of The Crocodile Hunter and its various spin-offs. At the end of the day, Steve Irwin died doing what he loved. That brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing to our channel to stay connected with us, and see you in the next one.